Today, we are joined by a dynamic father-son duo, if you can't tell that they have the last names, Ken and Dallin Kaufman, the co-founders of Accruedent. Everybody listening, make sure that you get that right because that's how you pronounce it. Ken Ken is, oh my goodness, I love how I wrote this. Ken is a seasoned dental industry executive and financial strategist. You are seasoned. Um, with decades of experience helping DSOs scale smart and sustainably. And Dallin, recent graduate, has it been less than a year?
Yeah, I graduated in April.
Yeah,
But
Dallin and I have a lot of ambition around some things that the industry continues to neglect, and we're trying to bring it to light and improve the entire industry as a result.
Well, and Dallin, what about you? You were like, I don't know, like, what did you originally want to do? And how did you like decide that this was the route that you wanted to go?
That's a good question. Growing up, I had a couple of different options. I knew that I was kind of interested in computers. I'd heard that programming and computer science was a good field to go into, so I kind of just vaguely assumed that I'd do something like that. But I got into dental when one day Ken came home from work and said, "We just had one of our receptionists quit on us. You start on Monday. Congratulations on your first job." And so I started working at the front desk at the DSO corporate office of Community Dental Partners. I think it's never too early to understand what's going on in the business side. Even if it doesn't become relevant or helpful until later, it's never too early when you're operating in a business environment. And I can speak to this as a non-accountant who has come into the business slash entrepreneurship space. I wish that I understood more about accounting and finance earlier.
Culture and finance are completely connected to each other. Completely. And when I say that, and I'm saying this out there for DSO leaders, for associates coming out of school, for everybody, this is not understood well enough. And I'll take just a second to explain it. When we talk about culture, these are human beings that every day we're hoping they wake up, eat their Wheaties, and show up and go to work and produce and do all of these different things. The concept of culture is the only way that you can make sure that you are optimizing and maximizing the return on the work that they're doing. It's the only way to do it. Because when you have a great culture, your culture spills over and people show up happy to be at work. And guess what? Happy people at work turn into really happy clinicians. And all of a sudden, all the patients are happy because the clinicians are happy and they're being taken care of. And so we're basically having a place to capture the information and the services that were being rendered to dentists. And what's happened over time is that the objective there was not to play nice with anybody else. Our system is our system. We're locked down. And so there's a culture amongst practice management software players. I don't think so much today, but that the culture back then was this thing is locked down. Nobody's allowed to touch our data. Everything is sacred. And there's just a legacy that exists that shouldn't. It needs to be broken down. Yeah. I do think, Dr. Millett, I think it'd be helpful if I just step back for a second, because everyone wants to know what's happening in M&A and what's happening with the industry. And is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? And all those things. It's not. Everybody is sitting on their hands right now waiting. My estimate right now is that the second half of this year, we probably won't see many transactions. The first half of next year, it'll be slow. I think that this time next year, things will be rocking and rolling. And the interesting thing is if you're looking to sell in the next year, it's not going to be a good time because I think there's going to be a lot of assets in the marketplace and it's going to be hard for you to compete. I would, and when I say I would, I'm advising our clients on this and everything else, but I would be building your business to make it through 2027 without a transaction. And if you do that, you're going to end up building a better business and you're going to end up driving a higher valuation for your business if you can actually do and sustain that. And so that's, again, we just jumped from like minutia of accrual accounting all the way up to the big viewpoint. But I think we're in for, kind of more of the same, which is there aren't many deals getting done. There are still several DSOs that are in receivership and that banks have taken over because they've blown through covenants and everything else. So as an industry, we still have a black eye. So borrowing money is more difficult because everybody knows about these situations. And then we've also had the rise of what we call the zombie DSO.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of our Dent Men podcast, where we dive into people, partnerships, strategy. I can't even talk right. Strategy in the dental industry, what's going on, all of the amazing people. And today we are joined by a dynamic father-son duo, if you can't tell that they have the last names, Ken and Dallin Kaufman, the co-founders of Accruedent. Everybody listening, make sure that you get that right because that's how you pronounce it. Ken is, oh my goodness, I love how I wrote this. Ken is a seasoned dental industry executive and financial strategist. You are seasoned. With decades of experience helping DSOs scale smart and sustainably. And Dallin, recent graduate, has it been less than a year?
Yeah, I graduated in April.
But like literally one of the smartest people that I know. You're like an old soul and you know so much. Also, both of you guys are now my literal neighbors. Kind of. So we are really excited to have you guys. You guys have a wealth of knowledge around a lot of things that I think a lot of people in the industry don't or might need help with. So we're going to talk about your journey, the company, accrual versus cash accounting. I watched your video the other day, Dallin. Thank you for helping me understand the difference. And with that, and I thought, we'd love to hear from you guys an intro as to Ken, all of your experience, Dallin, how you didn't want to build a company, got mad at somebody, and then you did decide to go work with your dad. So I would love to start with your story.
Awesome. I'll start. I fell into the dental industry, which I think is pretty true for most of us, and I've been here ever since. It's been 20 years. A Rebex Nomad handheld battery powered X-ray device. That was one of my early exposure into, pun intended, into the dental industry. I ran that business and we sold that to Danaher Corporation, and I ended up working there, hanging on for way too long. And then I got into the DSO side of the world and I served as the CFO of Community Dental Partners. And then after exiting from there, was the CFO for Nuvia, as well as the VP of all corporate services. And then a year ago, decided to break off and start doing my own thing. Dallin and I have a lot of ambition around some things that the industry continues to neglect, and we're trying to bring it to light and improve the entire industry as a result.
Well, and Dallin, what about you? You were like, I don't know, like, what did you originally want to do? And how did you decide that this was the route that you wanted to go?
That's a good question. Growing up, I had a couple of different options. I knew that I was kind of interested in computers. I'd heard that programming and computer science was a good field to go into. So I kind of just vaguely assumed that I'd do something like that. But I got into dental when one day Ken came home from work and said, "We just had one of our receptionists quit on us. You start on Monday. Congratulations on your first job." And so I started working at the front desk at the DSO corporate office of Community Dental Partners down in Texas. Spent a little bit of time doing that. Eventually, because of my interest in computers, moved on to the technology team there and have been doing technology for DSOs since then. And then, yeah, like Ken said, it was about a year ago that we decided to launch Accruedent. We've both chatted about starting a company for a while. And I'll tell you this, Sarah, we talked about so many different options. I think at one point we were talking about starting soccer leagues for little kids. We were talking about setting up donation clothing bins. If it was a business idea that we thought could work, we were talking about it. But we just kept on coming back to dental, both because there's so much opportunity here and we've developed some kind of niche skill sets, but also because it's just a great place to be with a lot of good people and a lot of really good things happening.
Still could do some soccer stuff in dental. I'm sure a lot of people like to play soccer. So it could be, you could have the best of both worlds, Dallin. One of the things that I know, Dallin, you and I messaged about today is I think it would be great to talk about one of the biggest reasons that especially Milad wanted to start the Dent Men platform was to provide mentorship to clinicians coming out of school who might not have the answers to certain things. Like he struggled with, negotiating a contract, and there's so many different things. You, Ken, I know that you've probably seen, I can't even imagine how many, new grads like coming to work at, things like CDP. Like what kind of things would you tell them, especially if they're going to work at a DSO, things to look out for, things to make sure that they do? Like what kind of advice would you give to them?
So honestly, this is going to be a little contrarian, I think, but they are the number one most important thing that happens in a DSO, period. End of story. You have no doctors and you have a bunch of business people running around. Guess what? You do not have a business. And so the number one thing is that when you show up, if you're a new grad and you want to be an associate, you're not looking to maybe buy a practice or do that type of a thing yet, know that that they desperately need you. And they desperately, in order for their organization to be able to grow, they need people like you. And so you should not show up feeling sheepish. You should show up feeling like and having the mindset of I'm in control here. I get to decide if I'm going to work for them. They're not deciding if I'm working for them. That's my job to decide. I love what you said about Dr. Malad about like the contracts and those sorts of things. Definitely get somebody who maybe they were a D4 when you were a D2 and they now know how contracts work. Talk to them, or just find somebody that can help you understand so that you can get your compensation lined out right, as well as if you have a desire to potentially have ownership down the road, get that stuff negotiated up front so that you have those opportunities, as opposed to, hey, we're good. Because otherwise the DSOs are really good at saying, hey, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. And then the equity never appears and everything changes. So those would be just a couple of things. But again, the mindset here has to be they need me. It's not that you need them so much as they need you. That's the whole model of the DSO. We hire associates who don't necessarily want to have to do their own thing. And they and then that drives the entire DSO business model.
So, well, that's good advice. And I think, Milad, why do you think that clinicians might feel differently if whether they're going to start as an associate anywhere at a DSO, at a solo practice? Like, why do you think that maybe they might not feel that way?
Well, I think it all comes down to the education part of it, right? And that's why I started this podcast. That's why we're creating the Dent Men platform and building the community around that, to letting these younger doctors know that you are in the driver's seat no matter what. Because sometimes when you come out, you don't know that and nobody talks to you about it. So the idea is to let them know, hey, no matter what happens, I mean, I've been out 2 years. I go to a practice. If I'm not in the driver's seat, guess what I am? I'm out. I'm going to leave the back door because I'm in the control of the whole thing in my career. If somebody's things doesn't align with me, I'm going to leave no matter what it is, because they need me. I don't need them. I realized that 6 months into my career that I don't, I can't find a job anywhere I go. So I took a control of my career. I should have done it a little bit earlier, but that's okay. You leave, you learn. But now what I learned, I'm going to take it and just educate others to say, hey, like, you leave dental school, don't think that because they have this status code in the marketplace for younger dentists. Oh, you just graduated. It doesn't matter. You still know how to do dentistry. It doesn't matter that you just graduated, but they use that as like, oh, we're going to mentor you to make you better. Make you better to do what? Do a crown prep that you went to dental school for 4 years and they taught you how. You just now have to know how to learn the business side of it and grow as a person. Everything else you're going to figure out. Yeah, you get into a DSO market, you see more patients. It doesn't matter where you're going to see more patients, and your speed is going to catch up. Your experience is going to get better. So I think educating them and letting them know, just like Mr. Ken said, is like, they just have to understand that, at a dental school, first day out, you're in the driver's seat. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Ken, so Dallin, you just made a video the other day on LinkedIn telling all of us who have absolutely no idea what the difference is between cash accounting and accrual accounting. Is that, and this is, okay, accounting is not my forte. And thank goodness that nobody thinks accounting is my forte and would hire me to do it, because then they would be like, it would not be a good idea. But is
They'd
it
get a bunch of sparkles on a piece of paper, probably, right?
They would. They totally would. They'd be confused. They might have a good time, but then, they'd look at their numbers and be like, nothing good is happening. But is it common for whether or not, well, actually I'm just curious, at what point in time do you think, whether you're an associate, whether you want to own your own practice, like when is it a good time for that, for clinicians to understand that?
That's a good question. I'll speak to this and then I'll pass the baton over to Ken because I know he has strong opinions there. I think it's never too early to understand what's going on in the business side. Even if it doesn't become relevant or helpful until later, it's never too early when you're operating in a business environment. And I can speak to this as a non-accountant who has come into the business/entrepreneurship space. I wish that I understood more about accounting and finance earlier, because it's just the language of business. When I got started, people were throwing around terms like EBITDA and gross revenue, and I was like, what on earth are they talking about? Like, revenue isn't gross, like revenue is awesome. And it uh and it just
If
like
you if you ever have merch, have to say EBITDA isn't gross.
and like I didn't even speak the language that other people were speaking. Like I didn't even know how to operate in that sphere. And at some point in time I wised up and I was like, I really need to understand more about what's going on. I bought myself a basic book about accounting, read through it, and was like, oh my gosh, like the world makes so much more sense. Like I get how to operate in this sphere now. And so I can relate from the dentist perspective who have developed like significant technical capabilities. Like they're really, really good at being clinicians. But if you don't speak the language that the rest of the business people are speaking, you're going to end up a little bit farther behind. You won't have the negotiating power that you need. Like it's possible for someone to take advantage of you. So even just having that basic bare minimum language and understanding is going to enable any dentist to go much farther in the business world. How would you add on to that, Ken?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I don't know that I can add a whole lot other than it was interesting to watch your journey from a total novice to reading a book to educating yourself. So I mostly just want to encourage like dentists who want to learn about the business side, invest in yourself in this way. It's definitely important to invest in your clinical skills and understanding chairside the bedside manner, chairside, and how to convert treatment, and all those things are super important. But if you have any desire whatsoever to be a DSO owner or to start your own individual practice, you definitely should be investing in yourself in whatever way makes sense. If it's books for you, or if you want to join a mastermind or whatever it is, it will become, you'll be grateful for every dollar and every minute that you spend on educating yourself on the business side of things, because all that's going to do is open up opportunities for you over time. And Sarah, you talked about accrual accounting, and the interesting thing about that is that the way that doctors generally get compensated, it's usually one of two ways. Either you get compensated based on some percentage of collections that your patients generate, or you get compensated based on some type of adjusted production. And the interesting thing here is that adjusted production is actually compliant with accrual accounting. And so if you are being paid that way, everything's accurate and right. But if you're on collections, that thing is all over the place. There may be, the insurance may have denied 5 times before they finally approved a claim. It's been 6 months, and now all of a sudden you're getting paid for it. And it's a horrible way to do things if you're an associate and you're being paid that way, and you leave, and all of a sudden all those collections that are going to flow through after you're gone, you're not going to have any access to. So knowing that you're working for an organization that, even if they're not running accrual accounting, at a minimum, so long as you're on adjusted production, that's going to be the most fair way for you to be compensated. And that's one more thing to look for in your contract that you're negotiating with that DSO that you're going to be working for. And trust me, I've been through like doctor pay structure. I've done this for a long time. We actually consult large DSOs on how to structure their programs, because between Dallin and I, we've been doing this for so long.
Yeah, the other comment I'd make just on doctor pay, the collections versus adjusted production, is if you're being paid based on collections, then there's another middleman between you and your pay, aside from just what you have the capability of doing, and that's whoever's running RCM. It's like if you have an awesome RCM team that's really on top of like appeals and claims and getting as much money as possible from insurance, then you're making more money. But if the RCM team isn't, then you're making less if they're letting things slip through the cracks. So that's another plug for adjusted production pay model, just because it puts you in greater control of your own compensation.
I'm so glad that I don't have to deal with all this stuff and that there's people like you that does. That's all I have to say about that. What would you, I know that we've talked about a lot of different things, but I know that company culture is important to you guys and your core values. So that's where I love the things that I love to talk about, right? So like what are one of your favorite core values? Like what is it that because I know Ken, you are so passionate, both of you are so passionate about this. What would you say is your mission and your core values that really drives you guys to do what you want to do?
So I think I want Dallin to answer that, but I want to just frame one thing here, Sarah, that I think is super critical. And that is that culture and finance are completely connected to each other. Completely. And when I say that, and I'm saying this out there for DSO leaders, for associates coming out of school, for everybody, this is not understood well enough. And I'll take just a second to explain it. When we talk about culture, these are human beings that every day we're hoping they wake up, eat their Wheaties, and show up and go to work and produce and do all of these different things. The concept of culture is the only way that you can make sure that you are optimizing and maximizing the return on the work that they're doing. It's the only way to do it. Because when you have a great culture, your culture spills over and people show up happy to be at work. And guess what? Happy people at work turn into really happy clinicians. And all of a sudden, all the patients are happy because the clinicians are happy and they're being taken care of. And so culture in dentistry, more than any other industry I've ever seen or been in, it is absolutely crucial. It's how you get the return on the investment of all that money that you spend on all those employees. And again, I've been in this DSO world for a long time. I know way too many statistics. Did you know that on average, 50 cents of every dollar that goes into a DSO goes into an employee's pocket? That's a lot of money that's being spent. And if you don't have a great culture that's driving motivation and excitement and happiness and joy and all those things in your organization, you're just wasting away money, literally. You're just slipping through your fingers. So with that as the understanding of like culture, finance, like where that comes together, now let's let Dallin go ahead and answer the actual question that you asked.
I like it when Ken gets on that soapbox. I think it's fun to watch. Culture, core values. I think one of the core values that is most significant to me at Accruedent would be client-centric. And that is one of our core values that we read every week during our company meeting, that we talk about at other times. And it's this idea of when we come to work every day, if we have the ability to check our ego at the door and like for 8 hours, stop thinking about ourselves and actually put other people's needs before our own, that is ultimately going to lead to the greatest possible success for our company. People who show up at work and it's all about them, they're constantly focused on my pay, my promotion, attention on me. What do others think about what I'm doing? You know, they may get some stuff done, right? They're focused on their own pay, and so they're going to work. They're focused on people thinking good things about them, and so they're going to try to deliver some good solutions. But ultimately, it's like it's just so inefficient. But if people show up at work and just turn completely outwards, and in our case, if we can develop the ability to just focus 100% on our clients. What are they thinking? What are they needing? What are their pain points? What problems are they dealing with? And how can I make sure that they are thrilled with what I'm giving them. But like, not just that I'm fulfilling the contract and we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Like, how can I make sure they are overjoyed with what I'm delivering? If we can change our mindset to be that, then success in business is going to follow. Like, we're going to make money. We're going to find more clients. Like, all of the good things that we would hope for ourselves are going to flow, but it requires checking your ego at the door and figuring out how to shift your mindset so that you're just 100% focused on the client. That's something that we talk about a lot, something that we strive for. It's something that we're not perfect at because we're human beings just like everyone else. But I'd say that's one of our core values that's most important to me.
I'm going to sneak in here, Sarah. I think that I had something really interesting happen to me because recently I heard that as the leader of a business, you should regularly be touching base with all of your employees. And I realized, wow, it's been a minute since I've just had a one-on-one sit down, not for any reason other than let's just talk and let's just like, how is your life going? You know, basic things like that. And so I went through this process with all the employees and I said, why do you enjoy being at Accruedent? Every single one of them, I was blown away by this. Every single one of them said, I love our core values and I love everything about it. And I look forward every week to our company meeting where we focus on discussing as a group one of our 4 core values. And I honestly, I was so blown away by that. I was overwhelmed by it actually. Because I sort of forgot the power that can come from having core values and really making it a part of the organization. But man, I walked away and I just said, holy crap, we have built an amazing company here. We don't have tons of employees. We don't have, any of those kinds of things, but we're trying to grow and do all of that. But that's one of the most rewarding things that's ever happened to me.
Love that. I have one more question. I know I'm like totally like asking all of the questions, but without saying like too much about maybe a potential future podcast that's like going to be coming out sometime soon. Ken, one of the things that's really important to you is talking about things in the industry that maybe a lot of people like shedding light on things that people aren't talking too much about. What is something like today, because I know you're going to have a lot of those things to talk about, but like what is one thing on your mind that you think that maybe people are not talking about in the industry that they should?
I think that it's being talked about, but it just needs to be talked about 100 times more. And it is clinical leadership. When in all the years I've spent in the DSO, finding somebody like me to be the CFO, where I've done it before and I can come in and do those things, it's awesome, great. A COO, a CEO, but wow, I mean, the position of a clinical leader or the chief clinical officer of an organization, they have so much opportunity. And yet Dr. Malad could probably comment on this a little bit, but I'll tell you, doctors don't like telling other doctors what to do. They don't like a doctor looking over their shoulder. But the thing is without feedback, you're never going to grow. You're never going to get better. And you can't just rely on the feedback that your patients give you. They have no idea if you're a good or a bad provider. In fact, generally speaking, the way they determine if you're a good or a bad provider is how they were greeted at the front desk. It's so disconnected. There is so much opportunity for clinicians to lead other clinicians to be phenomenal clinicians. And it's not about taking away autonomy. It's about actually preserving autonomy and empowering doctors to be able to be amazing clinicians, chairside with patients. And I just don't think that as an industry, we've even tapped the opportunity to train up leadership at the clinical level so that that can then expand amongst, the DSO that you're in or whatever infrastructure you happen to be in at that moment.
Vlad, is that true? Do you feel that way?
It's absolutely true. I'm actually taking notes, Mr. Ken. So don't think I'm just looking down. I have my flashcards and I'm taking notes. I feel like I'm back in the school taking notes on all of my podcasts. I should pull all my posters back there, but no, it's absolutely true. I think it all goes back to it's true. I agree. A lot of especially younger doctors feel super intimidated when they have other doctors that's breathing down your neck constantly and telling you, do this, do that, because at the end of the day, no matter who tells you what, it's your license. You got to do what you're comfortable with. Some doctors went to school 100 years ago and somebody went to school now. So the technology has changed. The things have changed. We're trained differently. Doctors used to place amalgam. Now we're placing composite, but that doctor that placed amalgam doesn't know how to place the composite. So it's just a lot of those kind of things. But I absolutely think that instead of focusing so much on trying to perfect the clinical side of it, yeah, absolutely. Try to focus on providing the younger doctors with focusing on bettering themselves as far as becoming a leader in better in the practice, or even a stronger leader in the practice rather than the clinician part of it. Because like I said, the clinical part of it, you learn as much as what the dental school teaches you. And I'm sure they wouldn't give you a degree if you didn't qualify for it. So then they give you that degree. That means they're saying, hey, we're comfortable with where you're at. I think the industry needs to focus more on creating leaders rather than people that's just going to follow them around.
Said.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm gonna zip it and let you guys ask questions because I just haven't shut up. So Masood and Milad, go right on ahead.
Me and Masood made a rule. We were like, when Sarah is talking, we're just gonna go mute, hands off. We're not gonna say anything. Masood is like, should I say something? I'm like, don't you dare.
This is my Rivers number 2, Masood. I'm sorry. I would go to say something and he would be like, sorry, Sarah. No, I'm going to keep going.
We wouldn't even let you talk there. But that's okay.
Hey, Sarah, I hope you just don't make it to river number 300. I hope you stops at 2.
It was a great conversation. I'm just giving you a tough time.
All right, so Dallin, I actually had a question I was going to ask you. You have pretty much the same kind of experience as I do. You were in tech, and then you moved into the dental DSO space. How did it feel like? I just want to compare my experience with you. If you had the same one.
That's a good question, because for me, they happened at right about the same time. Like I learned tech from a whole bunch of DSO guys that were running the tech stack for CDP back in 2017 or so. So in my experience, I learned the DSO business model at the same time that I learned about technology. But my experience, like learning about the rest of the world and then like taking a hard look at the way dental does stuff. We say often that like dental is kind of behind the rest of healthcare. And when it comes to technology, I hate to say it, but it's kind of true. A lot of healthcare has stuff really figured out when it comes to like the interoperability of their tech. So like how software can compare to each other, even things like hardware, like the x-rays that they're using or the other devices that they're using. There's just like a lot more attention on the rest of healthcare. Like it's kind of a little bit cooler for people to get involved in than something like dental. You can talk about the reasons why, but dental is just a little bit behind the rest of healthcare. So I had moments when I would look at the way we're doing things in dental, and I'm like, really? Like that's our solution. Like this is what we're doing right now. Like you've got to be joking me. Like no one's figured out a better way. Like no one's solved this by now. And everyone I talked to was like, yeah, like that's just the way it's always been. Is there anything different?
I mean, with the technology gap that you mentioned, where did you feel the biggest gap?
I mentioned it earlier, and this is one of my soapboxes. Interoperability and integration. Everything is so gosh dang siloed. You've got all of these different technologies and all of these different softwares, and nothing talks to each other. It is, I mean, forgive my pun here. It's like pulling teeth, trying to get data from your practice management software and data from your phone system, and like even just pair that together with like the right x-ray technology or the right like patient communication technology. Just like nothing works well with anything else. And at the end of the day, the tech stack for most dental offices feels like one of those people that's balancing plates. And it's like, okay, we kind of mostly got it to work, but only because like we've got this really archaic software that's translating data from this to this. And, we've got this thing over here that works, but like only on every other Tuesday. And so like don't breathe on it too hard. You see that in dental offices all over the place. And I think that's something that needs to change. It's starting to change. We're getting there, but we're not there yet.
Totally, that makes sense. I mean, with every industry, when there's pretty much a revolution of technology, it always starts with data. That's when data starts talking to each other, and like there are integrations that allows other companies to sit on top of the data. That's where the revolution happens. And I think right now, Sarah, sorry, I have to bring on Rivers again. I'm just gonna make a call. That's fine with you. So yeah, I totally agree, man. Like I can't agree more. That's pretty much the main problem because there's a lot of dead data. And actually today I was having a call with Rivers, and he was talking about the same thing, and he was saying that like the same thing is all over the world, like in dental specifically. Like all the data that's sitting in all of these softwares, like all the X-ray data, patient data, it's all dead. It's just sitting there with no use, no integration, nothing. So unfortunately, that's the way it is. But I think we got people that are trying to change that. So we can be hopeful, at least. What do you
Yep,
think?
we're seeing good progress. We're not there yet, but there are lots of awesome companies that are trying to bridge those gaps.
Mhm.
And that's probably what I'm most excited about in dental.
Yeah.
Why do you guys think we are so unique in that sense? Because both of you aren't necessarily like you come from outside the industry. Even when I talk to people about building their personal brand and everything, and even like LinkedIn, the algorithm is like video, 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 and it's so important. But yet, even in our little bubble of dentistry, like we're just this really odd, unique industry. Like, why, from the outside looking in, why do you think that is?
That's a very hard question to answer, I would say. Why are we different, Dallin?
Like, why is dentistry, like, why are we
So
different?
I have a theory. I'm willing to throw it out, but part of the reason why Utah is kind of the center of dentistry is because of the software that was built by a couple of entrepreneurs here back in the 60s and 70s. And that became the basis whereby people were basically having a place to capture the information and the services that were being rendered to dentists. And what's happened over time is that the objective there was not to play nice with anybody else. Our system is our system. We're locked down. And so there's a culture amongst practice management software players. I don't think so much today, but that the culture back then was this thing is locked down. Nobody's allowed to touch our data. Everything is sacred. And there's just a legacy that exists that shouldn't. It needs to be broken down.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Even 7 or 8 years ago, that was the tune that most practice management softwares were singing, which was you're going to make it as difficult as possible for you to use anything else other than us. And I mean, it comes absolutely from a place of scarcity. Like there's no abundance in that mindset at all, which is one of the reasons why we love seeing things shift. But it is kind of tempting. Like if you penalize someone from shifting away from your software, if you penalize someone for not using the in-house tool and trying to bring in third parties, then you end up getting more business. You can drive more revenue, at least short term. Eventually, people get fed up with that and they just decide to go somewhere where they have better options. But there are definitely short term gains there. And maybe another aspect of that is interoperability. It's just hard. It requires effort. Like if you're going to let your software talk to someone else's software, it means that your software has to be clean. It's got to be well documented. It's got to follow industry standards. Like you've got to be on your A game. And if you're not, like most people don't want to open up the doors and let everyone else see the mess that's inside their house. And most people don't want to clean up that mess so that someone could actually come in and do something useful in their house. So it just requires effort too. And I think maybe that's part of the trend is a lot of the practice management softwares have realized that they need to open up integrations. Like there has to be better interoperability, and it's just taken time for them to get things cleaned up internally to where they can allow for more integrations. But in many ways, I like asking why is dental of all things different? I think part of it may be it's just never gotten a lot of attention from big players. Like there's a lot of cooler industries in healthcare to be working in. Kind of like we discussed previously, dentistry is a little bit less sexy than some of the some, I think for a while, like, because no one changed, no one was forced to change, if that made sense. And then as soon as like people started demanding really good options and just one or two people started innovating, then everyone else was like, wait, we need to catch up. Like, we actually need to get our game together. Otherwise, we're going to fall behind and lose business. And that's what we're seeing now. As, oh, this is an interesting idea. Maybe DSOs are helping to drive that, because for a long time, the software that was available worked for individual practices. Like, it wasn't awesome, but it got the job done. You didn't really need advanced tools. You didn't need good integrations. But the rise of DSOs has brought in not only people from other industries, but it's given you leaders that have demanded like knowledge about what's going on in their practices. Like, they have to have data. They have to have the power to do things at scale. They have to have the power to double the number of practices in their organization and still function. And so the more DSOs have come to the marketplace, the more money and the more attention has flowed to having better software tools. And so the more people have decided to innovate in that direction. That's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought that before, but I'm kind of married to it now.
Maybe a new business idea is going to come out of this podcast. Hey, you never know. Well, Mr. Ken, I have a question for you. Well, by the way, I went to school in Utah. So thanks to the Utah, I graduated dental school from there. So
Did you go to Roseman or the University of Utah?
I went to Roseman, actually. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's
a great school.
Yeah, man, I love Roseman. Man, I enjoyed my time in Utah so much. I love it over there. So I still have some friends over there. If you guys go up to Roseman, tell Dr. Bowman I said hi.
All right, we'll do.
Yeah, but from the world of finance, what do you think how is the landscape of dentistry changing when it comes to finances? Because I know that the finance part of things, especially for younger doctors, is a very complicated and a complex topic. Are there any changes coming about in the industry that's going to make things a little bit easier as far as like education part of it, as far as integrating things together so that we can be more aware of how the financing side of dentistry works? Because those kind of things are very complex. I mean, for myself, trying to buy a practice, get things in place, get the finance in place, get the accounting in place. So what are some of the things that either can be improved or you guys are working on to make that transition a little bit easier?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I appreciate that you asked it in a very broad way, because there's a lot that we could try to take on with this. I think the primary component that right now in dentistry, that dentistry is completely overlooking, is that everyone is looking at their financial information in an inaccurate way. Dentistry has completely turned the cold shoulder to using accrual accounting, which is the gold standard for having accurate financial information. Now, generally speaking, if you've got one practice, so cash basis generally can kind of just keep you going. You don't have a lot of complexity. You're writing all the checks and signing them. And so in that way, not so much. But when you get to 10 locations or 20 locations, it is extremely difficult to run a business that way. And so that's one of the primary things and missions that we're on at Accruedent. Is our objective here is to democratize accrual accounting so that even that single doctor practice can have it if they want it, and it be affordable. In the past, it's been really hard to do. Nobody could figure out how to make it sustainable and make it easy. And that's why, as a co-founder, having Dallin on the team, he's in the practice management softwares right now, and he's building queries and building everything that we need so that we can pull the data out that's needed to implement accrual accounting and do it on the cheap so that everybody can have access to it in the industry. And that's the number one primary mission for us. And then the cool thing is, once you get on accrual accounting, now everything's accurate. So guess what? Your ability to forecast the future is now accurate because your baseline, you're coming from a place of truth to build out the future and to really model out how you want to try to grow and build your organization. So that's one piece I'd mention. I do think, Dr. Millett, I think it'd be helpful if I just step back for a second, because everyone wants to know what's happening in M&A and what's happening with the industry. And is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? And all those things. It's not. Everybody is sitting on their hands right now, waiting. My estimate right now is that the second half of this year, we probably won't see many transactions. The first half of next year, it'll be slow. I think that this time next year, things will be rocking and rolling. And the interesting thing is if you're looking to sell in the next year, it's not going to be a good time because I think there's going to be a lot of assets in the marketplace, and it's going to be hard for you to compete. I would, and when I say I would, I'm advising our clients on this and everything else, but I would be building your business to make it through 2027 without a transaction. And if you do that, you're going to end up building a better business, and you're going to end up driving a higher valuation for your business if you can actually do and sustain that. And so that's, again, we just jumped from like minutia of accrual accounting all the way up to the big viewpoint. But I think we're in for, kind of more of the same, which is there aren't many deals getting done. There are still several DSOs that are in receivership and that, banks have taken over because they've blown through covenants and everything else. So as an industry, we still have a black eye. So borrowing money is more difficult because everybody knows about, these situations. And then we've also had the rise of what we call the zombie DSO. The zombie DSO is the DSO that doesn't have enough money to grow, but can kind of sustain things and keep going, but they're not really able to make the progress and make investments to be able to drive the innovation and growth that they need. And so I think we're going to be plagued by that here for a little while. And the good business operators are going to be the ones that are looking out to 2027 and saying, I've got to build my business so that I'm hitting my stride and just crushing it by the time we get to that point. Is that a helpful response?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That the interesting thing is you said something about the accounting part of it and kind of determining what that future is going to look like for those practices. How are you looking at the data that the practice has? Because that's the interesting part for me is like you're looking at the data of the practice. Either it's like their cash flow, their revenue, what are they collecting, what are they producing and all that. What system are you guys implementing based on looking at their current data that they have in the practice to determine what is the trajectory of the next 2 years for that practice is going to be? Because sometimes that's hard, right? Because the associate leave or doctor gets sick or all that. So how are you guys making sure that the data that you're collecting at this time to project what the future for that business is going to be like? How do you ensure that those data is accurate, and how are you guys kind of putting system in place to ensure that?
Yeah. So if I were to sort of peel back the curtain here, the first version is always crap because you don't know. And when you do this process of forecasting into the future, what you're ultimately doing is you are creating an assumption. And then over time, we just keep testing all those assumptions to figure out, hey, this one actually is right. Like we're not having to move this at all. Whereas, hey, these ones over here, we need to go and take a look. And so it can be a little bit of a whack-a-mole process while you get going. And that's why it's really hard to do. And that's why most people don't do it. But there's a discipline that you layer in so that you ultimately get really good at forecasting the future. And then here's the most interesting thing, Dr. Malad, that I think the industry mostly just doesn't understand and misses. And it's this: the way that you maximize the valuation of your practice when you want to sell it has everything to do with your level of confidence that you can execute on your 5-year plan flawlessly. And the only way you can do that is if you validated assumptions about how your business works, about patient visits, about recare, about reappointments, everything that flows in and out. And you have this model that says in 5 years, here's what we can do. Guess what? That's when private equity or another DSO that wants to buy yours, that's when they look and say, we like that next 5 years. And these guys are amazing operators. They understand the details of their business. We can go execute on that. And we're smart enough that we'll be able to actually create more EBITDA than what they're saying so that I can buy it today, pay you with today's dollars, and then still get a really healthy return on, after that 5-year run occurs or happens. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, I have to ask the tough question because this is a question that me and Dr. Brad was like kind of going at each other a little bit on LinkedIn about this, but me and him were tight, so it's okay. So for dental practices, what is more important when it comes to kind of either selling or looking at their businesses to see if it's healthy? Do you think their cash flow is more important or the EBITDA number is more important? And what are the the important part of when it comes to time to selling your practice.
Okay, are you ready for this one? I love this question. I could talk about this one for hours. So just like cut me off, or maybe there's a trap door or something that you can make me stop talking. So here's the thing. There's only one metric that really matters. And I'm not just saying in dental practice, I'm talking about any business whatsoever. And you have to ask yourself this question: is my business accumulating cash or am I burning cash? That's it. That is all. If you told me that I got to see one metric for every business that I was in, and I knew that, because a business that generates cash is printing money. And guess what? People like to buy businesses that print money. That's just the nature of the game. That's the nature of business and how it works. And the tricky thing here is, guess what? You cannot figure out if you're burning or accumulating cash. It's not on your income statement. And guess what? It's not on your balance sheet. It's on your statement of cash flow. And you take cash from operations, you subtract your CapEx, boom, you have something called free cash flow. And if you go and talk to anybody on Wall Street and you say the word free cash flow, they know that you're doing a valuation on a company, you've got a 5-year model, and they're 100% focused on, is this business going to be generating and creating cash, or is it going to be consuming cash? None of us want a business that consumes cash. We want businesses that generate cash because we can pay our employees. We can pay ourselves. Occasionally, we can take a distribution from time to time, right? Those are healthy, growing businesses. And that's it. Like I tell people all the time, like you could give me all the financial data in the world and you come to me and say, do I have a good business or not? All I have to do is look at your statement of cash flow and do one subtraction problem, and I'll tell you if you're good or bad. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think you put that debate to rest.
I think I've just been doing this for a little too long. I don't know.
Hey, that's not a bad thing. So that's why you make the big bucks, because we as dentists, we debate these things. Do we care about the cash flow? Do we care about the dividend? The answer is, if you're generating cash flow, that's all what matters. So
That's right.
yeah. Well, Mr. Ken, Mr. Dallin, thank you so much for you guys for hopping on here. I know next week I will be at Dykema for a day or two, so I'll see you guys there. This is my first event I'm going to, so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully I'll make it there live and get out of their lives. See how that goes.
Awesome. We'll look forward to seeing you there.
Yes, sir.
You're running
Thank
a
you
great
so
show
much.
here. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you, Sarah, for hosting and asking all the questions and letting Masood get a couple in.
Welcome. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.